today in Rich in Relationship. We're going to talk about financial load, the responsibility for long-term financial health, and why men feel like they have to carry this. To allow one partner to set the goals basically allows them to chart the course for the family. Not only is this unfair to the other partner, it's unwise. Like any area of life, one person needs to be responsible for the long term, and one person should be responsible for the short term. Welcome to another episode of Rich in Relationship. I'm your host, Rich Heller, and today we're talking about the financial load, why he feels alone in carrying it. And ladies, if you are carrying the financial load already, and this makes no sense to you, I apologize. Statistically, the chances are you don't, but there are exceptions. My own partner carries a great deal of the financial load. If she were to listen to this episode, she'd be like, wait, what? So a listener writes in, I'm the one thinking about retirement, college, and emergencies. Why does it feel like it's all on me? Let's talk about what this listener feels like is all on him, quote unquote. The financial load isn't just what's happening now, paying the bills today. It's the long-term vision plus tactical execution for money. Where do you want to be when you're 90, 80, 70, 60, 50, 40, 30, etc.? And what's the amount of money you need to have set aside for kids in college? What's the amount of money you need to have set aside for emergencies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Now, in a previous episode, we pointed out that many men and women actually aren't even cognizant of how much money they need as an emergency fund, how much money they should have set aside just to cover everyday expenses. In fact, the statistics show a huge number of people live hand to mouth no matter how much they earn. There are people who are earning hundreds of thousands, even millions, who are carrying a huge financial load, hardly setting anything aside, just looking for the next dollar to pay the bill. The financial load is not just a long-term vision, it's retirement, investments, major purchases, risk management, as we pointed out. But what's often invisible about this is the mental weight that financial security carries. It's just not acknowledged. It's just sort of assumed that if one partner, whether it be the man or the woman, is carrying this load, they're competent at it, they're good at it, they enjoy doing it. So why talk about it? Well, the fact is, money equals survival in our culture. And when we are carrying the load, the responsibility for not only for the current survival, but the future thriving of your family, that is a big load to carry, especially if you feel like you're carrying it alone. Another listener asks, we both work. Why am I still the one steering the ship financially? Well, here's some statistics for you. In 1972, 85% of men were the primary earners of the household. Today, it's down to 55%, but 29% of couples have women as the primary wage earner, and 16% earn roughly the same. So what that means is 55% of men are still the prime wage earners, and 16% of what's left are earning equally as much as women. Out of those, a majority of men are still managing the finances, the long-term finances of the household. And I want to separate here short-term from long-term. Short-term, rent or mortgage, taxes, food, electricity, streaming, clothing, etc., insurance. All right, long-term are the things that we mentioned earlier. Now, it historically is not unusual for women to manage the short term and men to manage the long term. In many cases, though, men have been managing both. And the reason is that men have been taught that they are to equate managing the finances with provision. I'm going to tell you guys that this is a big misunderstanding. Provision is not necessarily about managing the finances. It might be about managing a part of the family finances. It might be about earning more. It might be about managing the money so that it's producing more. And when you start working on in terms of long-term finances, if you're putting money away in a way that is thoughtful, you're putting it in accounts where there's interest, or maybe you're putting it in an S&P 500 fund where there's going to be growth. The S&P 500 goes up and down, but over a 10-year period, it grows roughly 10% per year on average. And so you're going to be looking for ways to increase the value of what you're putting away. Generally speaking, women are encouraged towards day-to-day budgeting and stability, men long-term. And part of this has to do with the brain structure, the functioning of the brain that evolves in a genetically male body, and the brain structure of a brain that evolves in a genetically female body. Men tend to be more linear and goal-oriented, and so it makes sense to stick them on something long-term because they'll dog it, they'll be consistent at it, and they won't allow environmental concerns or considerations to interfere too much with that. And women tend to be more emotionally, environmentally aware. They tend to want to make sure that everything is in its place, that everything is right and good in the universe. And so it makes sense that, to some extent, it makes sense that women might manage the day-to-day financial affairs, but it's not a given. And I think it's more important that men and women walk into their relationship with at least equal financial awareness. There's nothing in brain studies that show that men and women cannot be equally financially aware. And that is what we're advocating for here. Financial awareness would be knowing the basics of how to run a family financially. It is a lot like running a business. You want more to be coming in than is going out. Or another way to put it would be, what you want going out isn't just for expenses, but investment in the future. But let's do a little reality check here. The fact is that in the whole United States, only 17 states require a personal finance course at the high school level. And that means that in the rest of the states, no matter how well educated everyone is, they're learning by trial and error. And I want you to get something about those 17 states. Those 17 states where boys and girls in school, in middle school, I'm not sure what grade level, or high school, young men and young women are learning the basics of finances. They're learning about money in, money out. They're learning about managing day-to-day expenses. They're learning the concept of putting money away for the future. In those states where financial education is inherent in the state school system, in those states, they have a lower level of loan default. They have more students applying for and receiving financial aid from the state and from the federal government, because the understanding of borrowing, when to borrow, how to borrow, when it's most effective to borrow, and how to pay those debts off is light years above the rest of the United States. So this is an argument for all of us to become more financially aware, and we are going to bring in a guest on Rich in Relationship to help begin to seed what financial awareness might look like. That's not what this episode is about. But financial literacy is vital. It's vital because if we're just putting money, most of us aren't putting money away. I wish I had that statistic in front of me. People who are putting away money often find they don't have what they need when it comes to retirement, or really when their capacity to earn wages diminishes, as is inevitable for a lot of people when their metabolism starts to slow down and they age up. And it's because they didn't have an understanding of what they're comfortable with, what they need to remain comfortable, how much they need to put away, how vital it is to put it away at a younger age when you can build wealth faster. A woman writes, "I want to be more involved, but I'm afraid I'll just get in the way." She is aware that couples need to not one. Two, financially competent adults to avoid woman keeping is what we've been calling it here. Woman keeping is where the man holds all the financial strings. There are whole not-for-profits dedicated to helping women get educated on finances, particularly in the divorce phase, because they find out that they don't understand what's coming in front of them at the end of the divorce. Financial literacy is an even bigger issue for many women than it is for men. 50 to 60% of non-retired adults don't have any retirement savings. The median 401k balance for participants is $25,000 to $35,000, which is far below retirement needs. About half of families save for college. 20 to 30% use a 529 plan. You may not know what a 529 plan is. If you do, kudos to you. A 529 plan is a tax-deferred plan where you can put money away for your kids' college. It's a huge benefit. It's a financial planning benefit. Forget about putting away money for college. It's tax-free, tax-deferred money for college. States with financial education mandates show higher credit scores, lower delinquency, and smarter student loan choices, as we've already covered. Shared literacy builds marital resilience, all right? If both people understand the finances of the business, of the family, if both people in the relationship, in the partnership, understand the finances of the family, if one of them gets sick, the other one can step in. Here's something else I want to make really clear. To allow one partner to set the goals basically allows them to chart the course for the family. Not only is this unfair to the other partner, it's unwise, because the fact is it takes both approaches to life, a linear approach and an ecological approach, to come up with a sound plan. My family and I were at a stage where we're planning a place where my kids can take their children, all of my children, we've got 5 or 6, depending on who you talk to, can bring their children a place where they can go, that's theirs, that we're allowed to come to also, so that their children will get to know each other during vacation time. It's a place they could go on weekends. It's a place they could go for vacations. It's a place they could go to work at if they needed to get away from their primary residence. We are financially planning for that as part of our future. There's a lot of discussion between my wife and I and the children about where this might be, how big it should be, what the location should be, and that determines the cost and how much we've been putting away for it and continue to put away for it. And we will have this place in the next couple of years as grandchildren arrive on the scene, for them children on the scene. That is joint financial planning, not just between me and my partner, but me and my partner and my children, our children. And the more everyone is involved, the more energy and synergy there is in creating the wealth needed to bring that dream to fruition. By taking the pressure off of one person and the responsibility off of one person, as well as removing the power from that one person, you develop synergy. This is opening the door for a true partnership. You know, a lot of women are complaining about man keeping, about carrying men emotionally. It's time that we started to look at the other side, which is men carrying women financially. A woman writes, "If I get more involved in my financial life, will he think that I don't trust him?" That is a great question. The truth is, he's going to be relieved. At first, he might be a little concerned, but when you bring your point of view, let me speak from personal experience, when you bring your point of view into the planning phase, when you bring your point of view into the decision-making phase, he will be incredibly relieved. And if you frame it as, hey, I'm your partner, I want to move forward with you, I want us to build a happy life for our happy family together, how could he refuse? How could he say no? If he does say no, it might be a test of your relationship. It might be that you need some relationship help, and we're here to help you if you need it. We want to shift out of either sex, either gender carrying the financial load or the emotional load completely. There should be open books. There should be full transparency of accounts, goals, and timelines. I'm working with a woman right now who is actually in the process of divorcing someone, and she has no clue how much money they have put away because he has controlled the finances. She is very scared about her future because she just doesn't know. And the only way she's going to find out is to serve him with papers and file him for divorce because it demands financial transparency. She is rebelling against being kept and manipulated through him managing the finances. And that's the other side of it. Men have kept women in their place through managing the finances. It's time to put an end to that. Women claim specific financial domains, areas that you're going to manage directly. Men, the same. Split the load, carry the load. Carry the load according to abilities. If one of you is more detail-oriented, then you're going to do the detail-oriented work. If one of you is more visionary, then you're going to hold the vision. Just as ending man-keeping allows men to grow emotionally, ending woman-keeping allows women to grow financially. And that's what it's all about, folks. It's about both people having a long-term vision that translates into daily, weekly, monthly, annual milestones that they can hit and celebrate together. A man writes, how do we split the finances without stepping on each other's toes? Well, here's the deal. Like any area of life, one person needs to be responsible. Probably one person should be responsible for the long term, and one person should be responsible for the short term. But one person could hold complete responsibility for the whole financial project if one person is holding complete responsibility for another. That doesn't mean that they do it alone. It means that they are the leader in that area. Leaders have partners who help them in the areas where they are weaker. I'm not saying that one person should own the finances completely. I'm saying they should own responsibility for the finances, and they should work with the other partner to make sure that these things happen with both people having their eyes on the prize. That's what we're talking about here. So what's a better way to put this? Let me give you an example from real life. All right. In real life, I manage the vehicles in our household. That's my responsibility. Does that mean that my wife never takes the car to the mechanic? No, she does. But it is my job to make sure that it happens on a regular basis. It is my job to make sure that when we have two vehicles that are at 80,000 plus miles, I pipe up and say, hey, guess what? We may need to sell one of these and get a newer vehicle because it's always wise to have a vehicle you can count on that won't need a new starter motor, a new whatever. Because the fact of the matter is that at 80,000 plus miles, parts on vehicles start to go bad. At 80,000 less, they're less likely to happen. It's my job to speak up and say that. Now, in this instance, by the way, because she manages many of the finances, she gets to say, we really don't have the money for that right now. And then we sit down together and look at, all right, how can we make this work? How can we find the money for this sometime soon? I better notify her early enough. And we look at it together and figure it out. She has responsibility for one area. I have responsibility for the other. We help each other with both areas. We have an understanding of what the needs are in both areas. It's not that you have a responsibility and you're siloed, all right? Silos don't work in partnerships. People should have mutual veto power. Just in the same way that she's able to say, this is not a good time to get a car, I should be able to say, this is not a good time to have a party, or whatever the areas of responsibility are. Overlap and cross-pollination keeps each informed. Honoring each other's strengths and allowing one another to lead in different areas without completely dominating those areas allows for honoring your partner's strengths and their honoring yours, and seeing each other's as different but equal. Not separate but equal. That's historically something we don't do anymore. Different but equal. The big payoff here is that you start to have a true joint vision that you both own. By giving up control first of all, you feel supported. But second of all, you're more likely to stay on track. Shared financial leadership prevents burnout. Shared financial leadership builds trust. It also deepens respect. As you see each other's strengths, it deepens respect. Both partners develop goal-oriented and emotionally ecological financial skills. What do I mean by emotionally ecological? What's good for the whole family? Instead of saying, we're just going to stop doing this and not consider, we're going to stop sending our kids to this school because we don't have the money for it, without thinking about what the impact might be. Instead, you might ease into it. You might find a way, you will deal with the emotional environment instead of just cutting things off. It's important that both minds are involved. That's all I have on this topic. Stay tuned for future episodes. If you like what you're hearing, like us on YouTube, follow us on YouTube, follow us on the podcast. If you're listening on the podcast, recommend us to your friends. And in the meantime, have a fantastic day and an amazing tomorrow.